Hey everyone, and Mitch coming in from not the Commander's Core studio and not the weird room that I was recording in before, and yeah, also no camera again today. Regardless, crazy things are happening, so even on the weekend I'm like, oh, okay, I gotta get it out. I gotta talk about these crazy cards. We'll get to the main star of the show at the end of this, and then we'll get really in-depth on that one. That being said, first up, another star of the show, I would say, Slime Against Humanity. Amazing name. Sorcery for 3 mana in total. Create a 0/0 green ooze creature token with trample. Put X counters on it, where X is 2, plus the total number of cards you own in exile and or a graveyard that are oozes or named Slime Against Humanity. And a deck can have any number of cards named Slime Against Humanity. My goodness, this is sweet. This is awesome. This is the newest, Dragon's Approach type card, essentially. Hey, it's a sorcery, and you can have any number of them in your deck. Absolutely amazing for Commander. There's definitely going to be decks built around just this entire card. I mean, I can see certain ones. I'm thinking probably like a Jund deck, where this is, the main card of the deck, and you have a lot of them in the deck. And then you maybe have some fling effects, and you also have maybe some ways to just like exile your whole library, or most of your library essentially. So essentially you can just make absurdly large oozes and then fling them at your opponents. There's some cool things that you can do with this one, but yeah, I'm excited to see where players take this. Moving on, Lazav, Wearer Faces. That's right, Lazav is back again. A 2/3 Shapeshifter Detective, because that's a thing. For 2 mana in Dimir, whenever it attacks, exile target card from a graveyard, then investigate. So there is a requirement that there has to be at least one card in a graveyard. Doesn't have to be your own. It can be one of your opponents. It doesn't really matter, but hey, when you do get to exile that, so that can be some graveyard disruption for you against your opponents, which is nice. You get a clue. Cool, go get a clue, and you can sacrifice that, and of course draw a card with it. On top of that, though, whenever you sacrifice a clue, you can have Lazav become a copy of a creature card, exile within until end of turn. So again, you are incentivized to get certain things, maybe into your own graveyard or your opponent's graveyard too. So maybe you're milling your opponents, maybe you're tutoring for things to get in your own graveyard, like Entomb type effects, and yeah, turning Lazav into like a really scary, I was going to say Eldrazi, but I guess not a shuffled Titan Eldrazi, but a massive threat. Yeah, that can be quite fun, being able to just do that, and very early, obviously. I mean, if you can, turn 1, maybe discard a card, essentially do some kind of a looting effect. Turn 2, get Lazav out. Turn 3, attack, sacrifice that clue. Turn Lazav into whatever giant thing you discarded. You can take players out quite quickly with a crazy commander like this. So yeah, I really like the design. Next up, though, Prof's Edectic Memory. Legendary enchantment for 2 mana. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card you own a maximum hand size. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you draw more than one card this turn, put X counters on target creature controller. X is the number of cards you draw on this turn, -1. So very interesting. I mean, this replaces itself, which is nice. Giving you no maximum hand size and just replacing itself, that might already be worth it for certain decks out there, essentially. And on top of that, yeah, hey, if you're drawing a lot of cards, you can make certain creatures pretty massive. I mean, that could just be a win condition in and of itself. Of course, this can pair really well with things that actually want to get more counters on them. I'm thinking Fathom Sage, essentially. Hey, cool, get counters on that, draw more cards. That can be quite fun. And yeah, ways to essentially get even more counters. Counter doubling effects. Also, obviously, proliferate type effects. This is a very interesting card. And again, I can see this one seeing a good amount of utility for certain decks out there. Again, if you already just want no maximum hand size, just those first two things are great for this kind of a card. Moving on. Aftermath Analyst. An Elf Detective, a 1/3 for 2 mana, enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards. So again, if you already have a self-mill deck, you probably want to consider something like this with a good ETB like that. But of course, more importantly, pay 3 and a grain, sacrifice it, bring all land cards from your graveyard back to battlefield, tap. So this is like, what is it, World Shaper, essentially? This is kind of like World Shaper, essentially, but you actually, yeah, you're paying to actually get that effect, versus World Shaper, it's like, hey, when it just dies, you get that effect. That being said, it's a bit easier to make sure that you get that effect, to be able to bring all those lands out of your graveyard back out. So there's only so many of those types of effects that can actually kind of ramp you through your graveyard, and this is a really massive way to do so. So yeah, again, a self-mill deck, or one that just cares about landfall and getting lands out here, there, and everywhere. Maybe one that's got a good amount of fetch lands too, so you can actually get all those fetch lands back out, get more landfall triggers, do some pretty crazy things. Yeah, I think this one's got a good amount of potential as well. Next up, Archdruid's Charm. Speaking of potential, now this one is a very specific mana cost. Again, instant for green, green, green. All right, obviously that is a bit hard for, let's say, a 5-color deck to try to cast. That being said, yeah, if you're in a 1 or 2 color deck, this is a very good card. Choose one. Go get a creature or land card revealed upon the battlefield. Tap and say land. Otherwise, spin your hand, then shuffle. So This is either, hey, if you need ramp early, great, go get that land. Again, it just says a land card. It does not say basic. So essentially, again, yeah, if you've got the $500 lying around or you proxied it, get a Gaia's Cradle. Or, yeah, there you go. Just whatever other land that you need for the situation that you're in. And again, it doesn't say, that it doesn't say that, you don't get that, option. This is just like the perfect kind of option, right? This is essentially, you don't have to go get that land. You go get that creature if you're like, okay, later in the game, yeah, you know what? I'd rather just go get a creature. I'd rather go get a creature. Let's go on the battlefield, obviously. That'd be pretty crazy for a 3-mana tutor. But being able to give you that option of like, no, cool, yeah, just get a creature that you need. Instant speed, 3 mana. That's really, really good. And that's not all. Again, if this card was just that, this would already see play, but it also says, again, hey, other options are get a counter target creature control, deals damage equal to its power target creature you don't control, so that's removal. Or again, exile target artifact or enchantment, also removal. So basically, this is just a pretty perfect card at 3 mana for a lot of circumstances. And again, if it wasn't so specific on the mana value, and I'm glad it is, it would see an absurd amount of play. But yeah, mono green decks obviously can utilize this card. 2-color decks, maybe even 3-color decks can swing those 3 mana symbols. Moving on, we got Relive the Past, a source for 7 mana in total in Selesnya. Return to 1 target artifact, up to 1 target land, up to 1 target non-aura enchantment card from the grave of the battlefield. They are 5/5 elemental creatures and other types. This is a very interesting one. It's like, hey, reanimate 3 things again: artifact, land, and non-aura enchantment, which is interesting, I guess, because you're making it a 5/5, so you'd need it on something, and then yeah, that doesn't really make sense to do it that way. So that makes sense, but yeah, being able to bring back 3 things, that can be absolutely huge. Now, turning them into 5/5s in some ways is good in that you're like, hey, cool, okay, I've got 15 power across 3 bodies for the 7 mana. Wow. But also it makes them a lot easier to deal with. Again, making it so like, okay, Wrath of God, which normally wouldn't hit them, does hit them. So I think this one's pretty specific. I don't know really all that many decks that would really want this all that much, but it is an interesting design, interesting card. And yeah, if you've got, I guess, artifact, enchantment, tribal deck, essentially, cool. Make sure you're getting things back out of your graveyard with this. Next up, Blood Splatter Analysis. Analysis. My goodness, I don't know why I can't read that right now. Enchantment for 2 mana in Rakdos. Enters the battlefield, 3 damage target creature opponent controls. So 2 mana for 3 damage. That's not really all the best. But that being said, obviously it's an enchantment, so it's going to stick around. Whenever 1 or more creatures die, melee card, then get a Bloodstained counter on it. Once there are 5 or more counters on it, you're going to be sacrificing it. When you do, return our creature card from graveyard to your hand. Not really all that big of an effect, but again, it's kind of removal plus recursion in a way. Yeah, there are certain types of decks that might want to utilize this. It's pretty specific. Though, next up, Barb Servitor. This one is spicy. A 1/1 construct with indestructible for 4 mana. Enters the battlefield, suspect it, so it's got menace and it can't block. Whenever you counter to a player, you draw a card, lose 1 life. So that's a good amount of value right there. Again, if you're swinging with it, cool. Again, it has menace, so you might be able to get through on an opponent that maybe only has 1 blocker, essentially. 1 life for 1 card is no big deal at all. On top of that, whenever it's dealt damage, target opponent loses that much life. This is a brand new stuffy doll, essentially, or whatever the, what's the one that's in red? You know what I mean. But be able to essentially deal damage to this. Again, it is indestructible. Again, if you've got, again, a 13 damage spell, you might know one of those, lying around, essentially. You're just like, hey, yeah, everything takes 13 damage. Oh, this took 13 damage. Oh, darn. Well, it's indestructible, so it stays around. And I'm going to put that at your face because I don't like you very much. Or, I do like you, but in this game, I don't like you. So, yeah, this is one. It's going to be hard for your opponents to justify blocking. And when they do block it, yeah, you're going to be punishing either them or someone else as well. Of course, you can make deals with this and be like, hey, you've got a giant creature over there. I'll attack you. You block, and I'll assign that damage over to that other player over there that we both don't like. So yeah, this one has a lot of potential. Next up, though, Kylox's Volt Charger, a 4/4 vehicle with crew 2 that costs 3 in Izzet. Collect evidence 6, comes an artifact crew until end of turn. So basically, again, get things out of your graveyard, exile them up to mana value 6 or greater. And then whenever it attacks, you may cast in-store spell from among the exile cards with it. Spell cast this way, put a graveyard upon the bottom of your library instead. So it's kind of a way to kind of recur spells in a way. So a good amount of value to be had with that. But yeah, vehicle decks obviously can consider this brand new exciting vehicle. But now, the moment you've all been waiting for. Oh my goodness. Anzrag the Quake-Mole. Okay, we learned in Morrow's teasers that we were getting a mole god, and this is it. And this is absolutely crazy, and I can't believe that they designed it in this way because it is just inherently so easily, so very transparently broken. An 8/4 mole god for 4 mana, just 4 mana for an 8/4. Again, if you showed this to someone 30 years ago, they'd be like, what? No, 4 mana, you're getting like a 3/3 maybe, like a hill giant. Okay, cool. Anyways, 4 mana in total in Gruul. When it becomes blocked, untap each creature you control after this combat phase, initial combat phase. Okay, so yeah, that really doesn't limit things at all. Again, whenever it becomes blocked, each creature you control gets untapped. Again, it's not creatures that attacked. And after this combat phase, initial combat phase. This seems like something that could pretty easily go infinite if this were to maybe get blocked again and again and again. You might be thinking, okay, that's got to be pretty difficult to actually do. Not at all. I mean, first up again, this does have pay 3 red, green. Yeah, that's 7 mana, but you are in green. You've got plenty of ways to ramp. That's very easy to get to that amount of mana and much more. And it says it must be blocked each combat this turn if able. So essentially, again, you are saying, hey, this creature must be blocked all the time. Again, it's basically a lure effect. And of course, you can include those in the deck as well if you really want to, but you probably don't really need to. That being said, as long as you can swing with this, ensure that it's going to be blocked, and then do it again and again and again and again, that is infinite. Now, you might be thinking again, like, okay, well, your opponent's creatures are going to get taken out. Okay, sure. Even with that, let's say that, okay, again, we make this indestructible. That is one way to essentially make sure it is staying around for the most part, right, when it comes to combat, unless you're playing against wither effects, but yeah, those aren't out there too often. Regardless, you're swinging with this, your opponent's block, you're taking out every single one of their creatures at the very least, right, because they have to block. So as long as their creatures are untapped, they have to block, you're taking them out. That being said, if one of your opponents has one indestructible creature, that is basically game over for all your opponents, right? Because essentially you can be like, okay, I swing at that player, they have to block with this creature or whatever, and essentially, cool, eventually it's just gonna be that one indestructible creature blocking again and again and again with this one, which I'm also making indestructible, again and again and again and again. So just swinging at each other, and then as long as I have one other creature that can get through, just one other creature, again, making it unblockable in many ways, we can talk about those here in a little bit, then I can just swing at all the other players with that unblockable creature, getting through on them, and then finally swing at the player that also has that indestructible creature. And again, that might seem like a requirement where it's like, okay, well, they don't usually have an indestructible creature. Okay, fine. I've got spells that can make their creature indestructible, while also having my creature be indestructible. There's also fog effects. Oh my goodness. Maybe this is finally the fog commander that we've been waiting for, but not in the way that we've been thinking. I mean, no, not really. I didn't want it to be this way because this is just, again, so easily broken where you're like, okay, I cast one fog effect that says like, hey, creatures can't deal combat damage or can't be dealt combat damage this turn or whatever the phrasing is. We'll talk about some here in a bit. But all of a sudden, now all creatures are basically indestructible when it comes to swinging and hitting each other. So I can just keep swinging with this again and again and again. My opponent has to keep blocking, and then I get to get through with, again, my whatever unblockable creature. We'll talk about some here in a little bit. Yeah, again, when you kind of dig down into this again, there are definitely times where I complain where Wizards limits things too much. Again, I don't like, for the most part, like activate at sorcery speed or only once each turn triggering. This one maybe needed just a little bit of a stopgap on it because, again, hey, there's no way that they missed that this is just so easily infinite, again, just with a simple fog spell. Like, just, hey, okay, cool, yeah, no combat damage from creatures hitting each other. And again, even if they're using a fog spell, which, again, you can use your deck however you want with this one, but, like, even if you're using a fog spell that prevents all combat damage dealt by all creatures, if you have, like, any kind of a singular attack trigger, like maybe like Inferno Titan. Hey, cool. All right, cool. Creatures just bounce off each other and don't do anything, and I'm not hitting players with my creatures. If I have a single attack trigger, I get that an infinite number of times, and all of a sudden again, I'm like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, burninate you in the face, game over. This is so easily broken. Again, I just wish Wizards would have put at least one stopgap on this, because again, if you see an opponent with this, and you have a creature in play that is untapped, consider swinging it somewhere so it is not untapped and cannot block. Although they probably also, with this kind of a commander in that deck, have ways to untap your creature to force a block. So yeah, this is just a pretty crazy off-the-wall design that I did not expect. And again, when you read it, you're like, okay, that's infinitely broken pretty easily. Yep, there you go. Okay, Gruul's got an infinite broken commander, pretty easy. That doesn't really take much setup at all. Again, basically, your opponent has a creature, you've got two creatures, essentially, and all you need is the right amount of mana and, like, a fog spell, and that's it. And that's game over. There's even one card that comes with this we'll talk about here in a bit that's a very old and very interesting card. Regardless, it's interesting. Let's jump into some cards that work well with it, budget buys, and pricier picks. First up, just to illustrate this point, okay, Serene Sunset, a pretty garbage card. One that, yeah, was never really all that good for the most part. When it comes to other fog spells, it's really, really bad for the most part. But with this commander, it's pretty perfect. Instant for X and a grain, prevent all combat damage to X target creatures would deal this turn. You essentially, again, all you need to do is spend 3 mana on this, 2 for that X. My commander is one of the ones I am choosing. Also, that one creature over there that my opponent has that can block my commander, I am choosing that as well. All of a sudden, you're like, okay, cool. I just swing again infinitely at that player. They have to block with their creature. I'm activating my ability of my commander, or I have another lure effect essentially. And there you go. I am just going to have it so that my commander just keeps bouncing off that creature, which keeps bouncing off my commander. I keep attacking again. And if I have another creature, I'm swinging through and destroying my opponents. And obviously, if that opponent has, multiple creatures in play, you need to choose those as well. Still, you're in green. You got mana to do it. You're going to be able to go infinite and win very simply. Next up, Terrifying Presence. This one makes it even easier for you. Instant for just 2 mana. Prevent all combat damage to be dealt by creatures other than target creature this turn. Again, all you need to do with this, again, this is literally like, again, this plus your commander's activated ability plus 1 creature. It's basically game over, essentially. You essentially just cast this and you say, okay, my other creature, not my commander, gets to deal combat damage this turn. No other creatures get to deal combat damage, which means my commander is swinging, bouncing off of other creatures, essentially, never dealing damage, never being dealt damage, and then my one other creature's like, ha, swing through, destroy everyone, yay! Yeah, this is way too easy, way too easy. Blinding Fog, yet another one. Instant for 3 mana, prevent all combat damage to be dealt 2 creatures this turn. 2 creatures. So again, they can still deal damage to players, they just can't do them to creatures, which again means they're all bouncing off each other, essentially. As long as I have 1 creature that can get through on my opponents, and again, you're going to build your deck that you can, then all of a sudden, that's infinite damage to your opponents. Not infinite, I understand rules lawyers out there, yeah, whatever the amount of damage is they're taking out, okay, 120, whatever it is. You win, okay? And again, creatures control of Hex per turn, which is also a very nice thing, so your opponents have a harder time to stop you from doing this. Next up, Withstand Death. Target creature is indestructible this turn. Keep in mind these types of effects, you want ones that are like, hey, any creature, not just my own. And it's usually a weird thing to be like, yeah, I'm benefiting my opponent's creature, but in this, benefiting your opponent's creature is benefiting you. Again, if your commander is indestructible and you give one of your opponent's creatures indestructible, they're just going to bounce off each other infinitely and you get infinite combat. So you're also going to be running something like Roar of Challenge, which is an interesting one as well. All creatures able to block target creature this turn do so. It gives you a way, actually, a round of activating your commander's 7 mana ability, essentially. So yeah, these kind of lure effects you could utilize in the deck if you want to save some mana. Also, on top of that, though, that creature gains indestructible every turn if you control a creature power 4 or greater. Obviously, you do with your commander. And with this, again, this is also one that you could just use on your opponent's creature. Yeah, it doesn't really matter that it's going to be the blocking thing, but giving your opponent's creature indestructible, again, can be insanely valuable for this commander. So also, again, an easy way to give your commander indestructible so you have that side locked down. As long as it's your turn, commander you control of indestructible from Manara, Evolving Familiar. Yeah, that works. There you go. Your commander is indestructible, and all of a sudden you're like, cool, as long as I give my opponent's creature indestructible or have a fog type effect, I can ensure that, well, this is just infinite. Soul of New Phyrexia, a great one as well. 5 mana, permanents you control, again, indestructible out of turn. You can also do this out of your graveyard as well by exiling it and paying that 5. That being said, by giving all your creatures indestructible, all your things indestructible, you can very easily, again, go infinite with this as long as you, again, have an opponent that has an indestructible creature, or you can make it indestructible, or again, you can fog to ensure that you are not allowing that creature to be dealt damage. Next up, Spearbreaker Behemoth. Now it's just basically, hey, does your opponent have something that has power 5 or greater? Chances are pretty likely that one of your opponents does. Hey, Spearbreaker Behemoth. It's indestructible, also pay 1, target creature power 5 or greater is indestructible this turn. You just have to essentially activate your commander's ability, activate this on your commander, and activate this on one opponent's creature, and there you go. You win the game because you are just going to be, okay, swing, okay, swing, okay, swing, again and again and again. And obviously this is indestructible, so it's never going to get taken out in combat either. Yeah, really easy. Next up, another way to go about this, Harmless Offering. Target opponent gains control of target permanent you control. This is kind of a roundabout way of doing it, but yeah, if you've got an indestructible creature, and we'll talk about some here in a little bit, I mean, we are talking about Spearbreaker Behemoth, if you donate that to an opponent, then yes, all of a sudden, you have more opportunities to say, oh, okay, cool, I'll give my commander indestructible, I'll swing at you, and you have to block with that creature I generously donated to you that is not going to get taken out in combat. Next up, Rogue's Passage. Again, we talked about how all you need is just one creature to be able to get through again and again and again. Not your commander, obviously. But yeah, activate this. Simple card to keep in the deck. Pay 4, tap target creature can't be blocked this turn. Cool. Get that other creature through again infinitely, or, not infinitely, rules lawyers out there, but enough to take your opponent out again, again, and again. Take out all your opponents. They are gone. Next up, another kind of weird interaction. Kamal, Fist of Kroza. A 4/3 human druid that has pay a green mana. Target land becomes a 1/1 creature 12 turns. Silly land. Also pay 5 mana essentially. Give your creatures overrun, +3/+3, and trample. This one's weird in 2 ways. First up, again, you can essentially keep forcing your opponents to have, well, let's just say land creatures that, this is another just easy way to win the game. If you have any kind of a mana dork, again, because your commander untaps all your creatures, even if they did not attack. There is not that requirement on it, which usually these days it is. So, essentially, let's say you have a Land of War Elves. It can tap red green mana. Cool. Tap red green mana. Make an opponent have a 1/1 land. Oh, no. Now they have to block. Again, if it's only a creature, they have to block with that. So you're swinging with your commander. Cool. You hit it. That's gone. Untap all your creatures. Do it again. Because, again, you untap your Land of War Elves. So you can take out basically all your opponent's lands. All of them are gone. Also by giving your creatures, essentially overrun. That's also another way to get damage through with your commander too, so you don't even need an extra creature essentially to win the game in that aspect. So there's some pretty crazy things you can do with this. Next up though, yeah, you can also have creatures themselves that are unblockable in a way. Ginger Brute, haste, 1/1. This simple little creature can win you the game. Pay 1, it can't be blocked this turn except by creatures with haste. If your opponents have no creatures with haste, and again, you can get that infinite loop of attacking going, you win the game. This tiny little creature, which seems insignificant in many ways, can just keep getting through on your opponents again and again and again, and the game is over. Or Key to the City, again, this is a card that can provide you value throughout the game, basically a delayed rummaging effect. Tap, discard a card, eventually it comes untapped, you can pay 2 to draw a card, but also, oh yeah, it gives a creature unblockable, essentially. So, again, making another creature's unblockable, it's going to get through again and again and again, because again, it's just like not, based off of one combat, but based on all the combats in that turn, so you can easily win through that. Ornithopter Paradise, this one actually is kind of funny, because again, if you, say, have an overrun type effect, a way to pump it, and give it even just 1 power, again, flying is usually get enough to get through, at least on, a couple opponents, maybe all of them. A 0/2 flyer, so this could be your win condition too. But also, again, like that Land of War Elf, basically, again, you're generating infinite mana potentially as well with this commander if you are getting that thing going. Because, again, it untaps all creatures. So, yeah, tap for 1 may have any color. You might want to include some Land of War Elves, some mana dorks in this deck, so you can essentially take advantage of that as well. Yeah, some crazy things can happen with this commander. Moving on though, a crazy good old janky card with this commander is Bubble Matrix, an artifact for 4 mana, basically that reduces all damage dealt to creatures down to 0. So again, just with this in your commander, this is infinite, because again, if your opponent has, your opponent has to have 1 creature, okay, again, assuming that one opponent has 1 creature that is untapped, this is infinite, because essentially, again, you say, okay, I'll activate my commander's ability, it has to be blocked, swing, block, nothing happened, swing, block, nothing happened, again and again and again, and again, this does not prevent damage dealt to players, so keep that in mind, and again, when you're utilizing fog effects, you want to consider ones that do that, so like, hey, Gala, Ambush, whatever that is, you make X11 Elf Warrior, good tokens, X number attack creatures. Yeah, I really messed up on that name. For all combination to be dealt this turn by non-elf creatures. Again, if you are getting really specific with these kinds of fogs, this one can just be perfect for you. I mean, if you're playing against your opponent's, elf travel deck, probably not, but most times, yeah, you're going to be the luck out and players aren't going to have an elf in play. And because of that, you can be like, okay, cool, yeah, just swinging, nothing's hitting, and there you go. All of a sudden, as long as I have 1 elf in play that can attack, again, like a mana dork, and I can get that through, I win the game. Or, you set yourself up with this, or whatever you're doing. Plenty of ways to win. Next up, Dolmen Gate. Thank you, Eddie, for this recommendation. But all combinations will be dealt to attacking creatures you control, so this is one, again, where you are safe on your side as long as you can give one opponent's creature indestructible or run out with like Withstand Death. There you go. You've got a way to essentially just keep attacking again and again and again, protecting your commander, protecting your creatures, and just, yeah, getting, winning through attrition, essentially. Moving on, Heroic Intervention, an amazing spell. Permanent you control, again, Hexproof Indestructible turn. Basically protect your things from nearly everything for 2 mana. You can protect kind of your setup with this, and also, of course, on that turn, when you give your commander indestructible, things can happen. Also, Mithril Coat, Dark Steel Plate, Mithril Coat, these kinds of ones that you can just equip to your commander, pretty fantastic. This one auto-equips, which is great. Enters the battlefield, attach target ledger creature control, flash speed. Again, this one is specific and says creature you control, obviously. So when you are looking for these indestructible effects, make sure you're considering those kinds of things and knowing the situations that you're in. But yeah, give your commander indestructible is step one in many ways. So moving on, we got Bizarre Trader. Again, there are of course other ways to donate things. Again, if you have an indestructible creature, donate to your opponent. You're so nice. Look at you. Hey, you're just so generous. Giving your opponent an indestructible creature or artifact or land or whatever you're giving them with Bizarre Trader. But yes, being able to set yourself up in that way is yet another way to go about it. So again, even if your opponents are like, okay, we're safe, everyone. That player's playing the Mole God, but we have no creatures that are untapped, or we have no creatures in play, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna give you a creature, and it's going to be indestructible, so I get to attack infinitely. Maybe that creature is Toski. Toski, Bearer of Secrets, can't be countered, indestructible, attach to combat fable. Whenever a creature controls counter to a player, draw a card. Now, obviously, you need to donate in the right timing because, yeah, you need to be able to do this while, well, it's untapped, essentially. So, like, on your turn, donate it to an opponent. And also, when you do have this, those can still be valuable. Again, you're going to be getting through an opponent, you're going to be drawing cards, so make sure you're keeping things like that in mind. Trailblazers is yet another way to get, not your commander through. You don't want to get your commander through, you want to get something else through. So, yeah, your group creature has non-basic land walk, so again, basically usually good enough to get through on pretty much any of your opponents. So you just equip this to any other creature and you essentially, again, just win the game once you're set up properly. But yeah, overall, a crazy, interesting, brutally effective card. I did not expect this. Again, these days, again, I do complain a good amount when Wizards puts way too many restrictions on something. Again, there's certain things that don't need restrictions, and they'll justify it this way or that way or whatever. But as a Johnny, not a Johnny the Planeswalker, but a Johnny, a player that likes to do janky, weird, combo-y shenanigans. I mean, not always combos, but like basically like Rube Goldberg machines, essentially. I like doing that kind of stuff, but this is just like way too easy. Again, it's just literally when they were designing this, we're like, huh, well, I guess this could go infinite with like a simple fog. Just that's basically all you need. Yeah, this is way too easy to essentially be like, oh yeah, I just win the game. Okay, that was fun. Yeah, for a commander that's quite low to the ground. Again, sure, that's an activated ability that does cost 7. You don't actually need that, though. You could utilize another lure effect, essentially. And again, you are in green, so you get ways to ramp. You can do this pretty quickly. You just need one other creature that's unblockable, essentially. This commander, an opponent's creature in play, again, that might just be, indestructible on its own, or you got ways to do that, or again, you have those fog effects, and all of a sudden you just win. You just win because, again, they literally didn't limit this at all. It is pretty crazy. So yeah, if I see this on the other side of the table, I am going to be deathly afraid of a fog, which is kind of crazy because, again, fogs have been bad in Commander for a long time, even though I love fogs. I used to have a Turbo Fog deck, but my goodness, this is a crazy Commander. You don't have to go combo with this. You do not, but I mean, I feel like the vast majority of players out there are going to try to get infinite combats with this. And therefore, when I see this on the other side of the table, I am going to be scared. I'm going to try to always have my creatures either tapped or not have creatures in play, or to ensure that I can take that player out very, very quickly, because if not, they're going to take me and everyone else out very quickly. Regardless, it's a very interesting card. I will say it's a very interesting card. A lot of cards in this episode have been very interesting. Regardless, though, I'd love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on all these. Of course, stay tuned to this channel for more exciting quick takes and spoilers. And as always, thanks again and have a good one.
This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.